And now I'm going to show you how to use the radios. If we hit 0 and then 1, it'll bring us over to the radio stack. And you can see here we've got, this is the VHF AM radio, this is the UHF radio, and then behind that, which we can't see in that view, is the VHF FM radio. We'll go through the VHF AM first. So if we want to turn on the VHF AM, we have to right click this once so it's on TR for transmit, and then if we want to change to a frequency, say 150 AM, we change this dial here and it will change the frequency. So if we go to 150 AM, we have to left click this to decrease it, and then we got 150 AM plugged in. And now you can use your radio menu to acquire anything on this frequency. To do the VHF radio, sorry, UHF radio, it's a little different. First of all, we have to right click this to set it onto main both, and the radio will turn on. And you see we have a bunch of twisty selection dials which go to a number. So if we want to say go to 259, we've got 25 already, so, and this is 1, so we want to change that. So we edit this dial until we get 9, and then we've got 259 programmed in. And last but not least is the FM radio, and just the same as the AM radio, all we do is we right click this and then we can just program our frequency in. Say we want to go to 35 FM, we can just turn this dial, and it's as easy as that. All of these have presets. If you want to use a preset, it does depend on the mission, but if you want to use a preset, we can right click this and it will go onto preset, and then each one of these will have its own frequency. Just take a note that the frequency that they have isn't displayed on here, so you have to actually know what the preset is with external documentation. And the same thing goes for here. We can put it on preset as well, and then these channels will have different radio frequencies, and it doesn't display on here either. And then obviously the same thing again here with the presets. Also, you can note that the UHF is displayed here, channel 1. So we're currently on channel 1, and if we switch it back to that, it'll display 259.000. And so that's how you use the radios in the A10C Warthog. And we're back in the controls, and what we're going to do is look at the controls you need to operate the radios. The three keys we need are HOTAS mic switch forwards, HOTAS mic switch down, and HOTAS mic switch aft. I'm going to put something on the screen now just to show you the default commands for these. If you want them on something more convenient and more memorable, what I like to do is I've put them on 2, 3 and 4 on my keyboard. So what mic switch forward does is that will get you the, if we click OK, mic switch forwards will get you the VHF AM radio, so you're now speaking on this radio. Mic switch down is the UHF radio, so you're speaking on this radio here. And number 4, or mic switch aft, makes you speak on the VHF FM radio. Okay, now we're going to do the curves and dead zones for the A10. Now this should hopefully make it easier for you to fly the A10 precisely. So we just clicked on options. Now we're going to click on the aircraft category. We're going to go scroll up to A10C Sim. Click on that, and then we're going to hit on the category. We're going to go down to access commands. Now over here we have several columns. Each column represents a controller. So we've got SciTech Pro controller, which is my rudder pedals, my throttle, and my joystick, and the mouse and the keyboard. Now we have several axes, so we got the pitch, roll, rudder, and the throttles. We're not going to put any curves on the throttles, but we are going to put curves on the pitch, the roll, and the yaw. So what we do is click on pitch, and we follow the blue line all the way out until we've got the correct controller. So this is the joystick, so that's good, so we know that's right. Click axis tunes, that's down here. So axis tune. Now what we've represented here, we have a graph representing the control movements. So this dot here is the movement in real life of my joystick, and this dot here is the movement of the control surface. So when this is at the max, this is 100% movement in real life, this is 100% movement in the game. Okay, and when this is at 50%, this is at 50%, and this is because it's linear, so all these values translate directly to these values. When we put a curvature on it, we change that, and as you can see, the graph is starting to change. So if we put 40 curve on, we go to fit the 50% mark now. No longer is this at 50%. So the effect this has is it makes the lower ends, like these areas here and here, more precise. So you can actually use larger movements for much smaller movements in the aircraft. So it makes it the area close to the center more precise, but as a trade-off, it makes the area away from the center much more sensitive. So right. So for the pitch, I would probably recommend 25 to 30, depending on the quality of your controller. Now the Deadzone, as you can see, it creates a flat line. So when I move the joystick, even though I'm probably at about 50% here, there is no movement on the control surface. It's only when it gets to this part of the line that you get movement. So the best way to check what Deadzone you need to do is to rock your joystick backwards and forwards. If there's any play in the spring or anything that you don't think is movement that you would do, then so say the joystick does this when you just gently touch it, there's play in the spring, then you adjust the Deadzone so that none of that is registered, and then you'll have a Deadzone of about 3 or 4 or 10 or whatever, and now that will be more precise. Okay, so we can do this for each one. So for the roll, I recommend a curvature of about 20, and for the rudder, I've got a curvature of about 20. That's if you've got rudder pedals. If you are using a twist grip, it's probably to have a curvature closer to 30 or 40, since you very rarely need full rudder. So it's better to have it much higher values like that. And the throttles, as I said, we're going to keep them completely linear, because you want 50% movement in the throttle to represent 50% movement in the throttle in real life. Okay, and then there's one last thing we didn't mention, which was saturation. Whoops, wrong. Saturation. Okay, so we've got our stick here. Now, say we pull off, we keep on breaking our wings off. What we can do is reduce the saturation in the Y. Now, what this does is it reduces the total movement of the control surface. So at the moment, since I've got 33 saturation, I can only go to 33% of the 100% of the movement. Okay, so as I increase this, the percentage of movement that I can go to goes up to 100. I wouldn't recommend this on the A10, but on the P51 or TF51, I'll show you. I have 60% saturation, so it only goes up to 60. And that concludes setting up the curves and dead zones for the A10. And now we come to the midair refueling part of this tutorial. And so we're currently approaching the tanker, and before we get to the tanker we need to radio with it to tell it that we're inbound. So we can do that by choosing the appropriate channel, so mic switch forwards, aft or down for the UHF, VHF and AM and FM radios. And then we hit F6, then we hit the appropriate tanker, and then we press inbound, which should be F1. That will, the tanker will reply to you if you've done it all right and you've got the right frequencies programmed into your radios, and they'll say their altitude, whether they've got other aeroplanes behind them, and then they'll tell you to rendezvous. And so once you've rendezvoused behind the tanker, you're going to use a different command. You're going to ready pre-contact, and the tanker will tell you if you're cleared to have contact. So that'll happen in a sec, just here. And there we go. So we hit our radio button, and then we hit F1. And the guy said return pre-contact because we're not close enough. So we've got to get a little closer, and then we've got to try again. And you'll see here, now he says cleared contact. And as you can see, we're easing in nice and slowly. We're not coming in rushed or anything. We want to take as long as possible. Now what we just did there is we opened the gate. So that was that big handle down to the left. And you can see the throttle positions on the left. I'll mark them on the screen for you, and you can see how it's moving. So we're just going to keep them nice and smooth and just slowly edging towards the tanker. You want to have a closure rate of 2 or 3 knots. The key to getting on the tanker correctly is patience, so you just got to be nice and slow. So now he's moved the boom, so try not to chase the boom when he does that, try and keep level. And just keep nice and stabilized and slowly edge up to the tanker. You want to be trimmed before you connect, just so it makes it easier for you when you're on the boom. And you see we're edging up, and when we get close enough, if we're moving slow enough, the boom will go into the receptacle. And now he said we've contacted and we're taking fuel. And so now you can see we just need to maintain that position. So what I like to do to maintain the position is put the boom, the bit with the wings on it, that bit at the top of the screen, right where it is right now. So the 2 wings are in the corners of the top of my front windscreen, and I like to keep the distance, so the green marker on the boom, around that point, and that will give you an accurate representation of where you need to be. So if you're drifting back a little too much, you give little bursts of power. You'll see me do that. I'll give quite a lot of power, and then I'll bring it back to a position which I know is roughly about where we can cruise at behind the tanker. So you see I gave it a little burst of power there and brought it immediately back. Because if you keep the power on for too long, you're going to overcompensate and you're going to go past the boom. And as you can see, the pitch and roll are barely moving, and I'm not even touching the rudder, pretty much. It's really small movements. So you'll want to set curves up for this. In a minute, the tanker's going to go into a turn, and you can see how that's handled. The key is not to panic when he goes into a turn, and just to pretend that the tanker is the horizon. So you just ignore the outside world and just pretend the tanker is the horizon. we got too close and we dropped a lot of power, and then we immediately put the power back up to like the middle position. So we didn't overcompensate, and we're back on the green. This just takes practice to know where that middle position is for different speeds of the tanker. So here we go, he goes into a turn. We just do a little more turn than the tanker to stop us from sliding sideways. And now we're in the turn, we just pretend the tanker is the level. So we ignore the horizon, and we're looking at the tanker and the boom, and you just pretend that's the level. So now we're level with the tanker, so in my mind I'm thinking that I'm actually level. And then you don't even notice you're turning. And there we go, transfer complete. So you'll also automatically be disconnected, and then you want to turn off, you want to close the gate after you, which is what I do now, and turn off the lights. And that's how you mid-air refuel. So thank you very much for watching.